Hi, my name is Amanda, and today the Equine Information Source is in conversation with Dr. Paul Sharpe. Dr. Sharpe has a PhD in Animal Physiology and is a retired professor from the University of Guelph that specialized in pasture management. He is the lead author and editor of a horse pasture management textbook. Thank you, Dr. Sharpe, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with the Equine Information Source today. Why is it important to properly maintain or manage your pasture during the spring and summer to be able to maximize usage for the fall and winter months?
Spring is usually the wettest season in North America, at least our temperate parts. And when temperatures are moderate and things are wet, this low rate of evaporation combines with runoff from the snow melt and the spring rain, and that provides the highest soil moisture of any season. So forage plant roots have a great opportunity to grow during spring. Anything else that you can do in spring to further encourage root growth of your most palatable and nutritious forage plants will have an effect that's additive to the soil moisture effect. So spring is a really good time to start looking after your plants for the whole grazing season. In the long term, storage of carbon in the soil, what's called carbon sequestration, has been shown to be influenced more by soil moisture level than by the system of pasture management. So lots of pasture management gurus were hoping for a long time that experiments would show that, well, if we just do good rotational grazing, we'll sequester more carbon. And turns out that's not quite the case, that the soil moisture level has a much greater effect on carbon sequestration. So we really do need to take advantage of soil moisture in the spring for both our short-term and long-term effects. Now summer comes along and brings the hottest temperatures, so the highest rates of evaporation, and this causes soil moisture level to drop off. The high temperature also reduces the rate of plant metabolism, especially of the cool season grasses and legumes, which is most of what we grow in Canada. So this causes them to slow down their growth, and with many species and in many environments, the cool season grasses go dormant in mid to late summer. Once temperatures are up in the high 20s Celsius, you start to see this dormancy effect in a lot of cool season grasses. But we can keep soil relatively cool through spring and summer by ensuring that grass is not grazed or cut too short. It's a shading effect. So leave a forage residual of 10 to 11 centimeters, or even as much as 15 to 16 centimeters. And for those of you who prefer inches, that's a range of about 4 to 6 inches after grazing or mowing. And this provides enough shade to prevent heating of the soil. You might wonder why. Well, hotter soils have higher rates of evaporation of water, and nitrogen in that soil can volatilize and be lost. Also, soil organisms are really valuable to us, and in really hot, dry soils, there's lower survival rates of many valuable soil organisms. Another reason to keep this relatively high residual height is that taller plants have a greater leaf area, and so higher rates of photosynthesis. And when we're talking about forage management, we should never forget the basic equation of photosynthesis. Water plus carbon dioxide stimulated by sunshine gives us sugars. And the sugars can be energy stores, and they will also become all of the structural carbohydrates of the plant. So taller plants have a shorter post-grazing dormant period, and they start growing sooner and produce more sugar that can be used for growth. There are many diagrams in grazing publications that show differences in root length in response to grazing to different residual heights. So if you graze shorter, plant roots shrink more in response. Thus, they have less ability to absorb water and nutrients from the soil. There are two types of plants that won't be affected quite so much by the midsummer slump. And these are legumes like alfalfa. One of the things that helps alfalfa is its very long taproot, so it can get moisture from great depths. There's a grass that's very popular in the USA and can grow in southern Ontario, but not much of the rest of Canada. It's called tall fescue. And much is written about tall fescue, which I won't go into here. There are some true warm season grasses like Bermuda grass that a few people might grow in Ontario. Another one called Bahia grass. So these are true tropical grasses. Biologically, they're referred to as C4 grasses because they have a little different metabolism. And they have their peak of production in midsummer. So in middle latitudes in the United States, lots of people can grow some cool season grasses, and then they can grow these warm season grasses during the hottest part of the summer.
Are there any simple habits or practices horse owners can change, such as grazing rotations, to make pastures last longer throughout the fall in order for their horses to graze longer?
Yes, and here I'm going to say a surprising thing. Don't do what seems intuitive. When pasture is in short supply, our intuition tells us to open up all the fences and gates so that horses can find whatever grazable forage that they will like and eat it down. Unfortunately, this is hard on the plants. So in these times of short forage supplies, make your paddocks smaller. Use temporary electric fence to create small paddocks that you can manage better. Keep your grazing periods shorter and your resting periods longer, and that helps conserve forage. You'll need to manage the smaller areas more intensively. Okay, the stalking intensity will be higher, but still leave enough residual grass after grazing, thus the short grazing period, that there's a big enough solar panel left in each desirable plant to help it regrow its roots and shoots. You can also try to keep slightly different mixtures of forage species in different parts of the farm. Because of the varying effects of soil type, moisture, shade, exposure to wind, and different drainage, you'll eventually learn which paddocks are more productive in various seasons. Speak to an agronomist before you do any reseeding to try and match the species and varieties within a plant species to even out the highs and lows of production.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to meet with the Equine Information Source and to do this interview with myself.
It was a pleasure to be with you, Amanda.